There is a reason your eye stopped here. Lot scrolled past. Lot ignored. Lot delayed. Something within you paused, almost instinctively, as if an unseen hand gently pressed against your spirit and whispered, "Wait, this is for you." And now you're here, reading this, feeling something you cannot fully explain. This is not coincidence. This is not algorithm. This is not random timing. This is interruption, divine interruption. There are moments in life when everything feels ordinary on the surface, yet something deeper begins to stir beneath it all. You go about your day, doing what you've always done, speaking to the same people, carrying the same thoughts, yet something feels off. A quiet tension, a subtle urgency, a feeling like time is slipping through your fingers faster than it should. You felt it, haven't you? That strange awareness that something is about to shift, but you don't know what. That inner voice that says, "Pay attention," even when nothing around you seems urgent. That restlessness that keeps returning no matter how much you try to ignore it. This is that moment. Because when heaven interrupts, it does not ask for permission, it commands attention. And right now, that interruption has found you. There are thousands, even millions, who could have seen this message, but they didn't stop. They didn't feel what you're feeling right now. They didn't sense the weight behind these words. But you did. You felt the pull. You felt the pause. You felt the presence. That is not accidental. Something in your spirit recognized something in this message. Something ancient. Something divine. Something that has been trying to reach you long before this moment even arrived. And now the question becomes, why now? Why, at this exact moment in your life, out of all the days, all the hours, all the seconds, did this message appear before you? Because something is accelerating. Time is not moving the way it used to. You may not see it with your physical eyes, but spiritually, things are speeding up. Decisions are becoming heavier. Consequences are becoming closer. Opportunities are appearing and disappearing faster than ever before. And the truth is, you've been delaying something. Not out of weakness, not out of ignorance, but out of uncertainty. There is something you know you need to face. Something you've been sensing for a while now. A decision you've been postponing. A truth you've been avoiding. A step you know you're supposed to take, but haven't yet. And the longer you wait, the heavier it feels. That's not pressure from the world. That's pressure from purpose. Because when your calling is near, your comfort begins to feel uncomfortable. What once satisfied you no longer does. What once made sense now feels empty. And what once felt distant suddenly feels urgent. That is where you are right now. On the edge of something. Not destruction, but decision. Not fear, but awakening. Not confusion, but revelation trying to break through. And this is where Archangel Michael enters your moment. Not gently, not quietly, but with clarity, authority, and urgency. Because when he is sent, it is never casual. It is always for a reason. It is always for a moment. It is always because something cannot wait any longer. You may not understand everything yet. You may not see the full picture. But you feel enough to know this. This moment matters. And here is the truth you cannot ignore. You were not just guided here. You were summoned. Summoned out of distraction. Summoned out of delay. Summoned into awareness. Because something is coming. Something that will require clarity, readiness, and spiritual alignment. And heaven, in its mercy, chose to interrupt you before it arrives. This is your warning, but also your invitation. An invitation to wake up. An invitation to pay attention. An invitation to step into what has been calling your name long before you were ready to answer. And now you are out of time to pretend you don't feel it. Because you do. And deep down, you already know this is not just another message. This is your moment. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you feel this message stirring your spirit. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around you. There is a shift happening around you that cannot be measured by clocks, calendars, or ordinary timelines. It is not something you can track with your eyes, yet you feel it pressing against your spirit with increasing intensity. Something is accelerating. Something is closing in. And the unsettling part is this. You were never meant to fully understand it with logic, but you were always meant to recognize it in your spirit. This is the urgency of the unseen, the movement of divine timing collapsing into a single, critical moment where delay is no longer safe. You may have noticed it in subtle ways at first. Days that seemed to pass faster than they used to. Seasons that months felt distant suddenly demanding immediate attention. Conversations that carry more weight than expected. Even your own thoughts feel louder, more persistent, as if something within you refuses to be silenced any longer. This is not pressure created by your circumstances. This is alignment pressing against delay. This is destiny refusing to be postponed any further. There are seasons in life where time feels abundant, where opportunities wait patiently, where hesitation seems harmless. But this is not one of those seasons. This is a season of convergence, where what has been building in the background is now stepping forward into visibility. And when convergence begins, everything moves faster. Doors open quickly, but they also close quickly. Clarity arrives suddenly, but so do consequences. There is no longer space for prolonged indecision, because the spiritual atmosphere around you has shifted into urgency. You have been sensing this in ways you may not have fully acknowledged. That feeling that something important is slipping if you do not act. That quiet awareness that you are being called to step into something unfamiliar. That inner tension that does not let you rest the way you used to. You may have tried to distract yourself from it, to explain it away, to convince yourself that you have more time. But the truth remains steady and unchanging. Time, as you once knew it, is no longer moving at the same pace for you. This is why Archangel Michael does not arrive gently in moments like this. His presence carries urgency because the message he brings cannot afford delay. When he steps into your awareness, it is because something has reached a point where waiting is no longer an option. It is not meant to create fear, but it is meant to awaken you. Because what is at stake is not small. It is not temporary. It is not insignificant. It is tied to your direction, your purpose, and the path you are about to step into. Here is something you have been holding back from. A step you have been hesitant to take. A truth you have been reluctant to fully accept. And each moment you delay, you feel the weight of it increase. That weight is not punishment. It is not condemnation. It is the natural consequence of resisting alignment. Because when your spirit knows the direction you are meant to go, every moment spent standing still begins to feel heavier than movement itself. What makes this moment different is that the window is narrowing. Not in a way that removes hope, but in a way that demands awareness. You are not being rushed into confusion. You are being pulled into clarity. But clarity requires response. It requires you to acknowledge what you already sense. It requires you to move when everything within you recognizes that standing still is no longer an option. There are forces in the unseen that respond to timing. Opportunities that are assigned to specific moments. Alignments that only exist within certain windows. And when those windows open, they do not remain open indefinitely. This is why the urgency feels so real. Because it is real, not imagined, not exaggerated, not symbolic. It is the sound of time aligning with purpose, calling you to step forward before the moment passes. You are not being asked to have everything figured out. You are not being asked to understand every detail of what lies ahead. You are being asked to respond to what you already know deep within. That knowing has been growing inside you, becoming stronger with each passing day, refusing to fade, refusing to be ignored. It is the voice of alignment, the voice that speaks without words, the voice that has led you to this exact moment. And now, you stand at a threshold. Behind you is delay, hesitation, and the comfort of what you already know. In front of you is movement, change, and the unknown that carries your next level. The urgency you feel is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to position you, to move you from awareness into action, from sensing into stepping, from knowing into becoming. Because the truth is simple, even if it feels intense, this moment will not wait forever. The opportunity to respond, to align, to move forward is here now. And what you do with this moment will determine how the next chapter of your life begins. You feel it because it is real. You sense it because it is near. And you have been brought to this point because you are ready, even if you have not fully realized it yet. Type "I accept divine timing" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2020 is now activated around your path. There comes a moment when the silence breaks, not gradually, not subtly, but with unmistakable authority. A moment when the unseen realm no longer whispers but declares. This is that moment. And this is where Archangel Michael steps forward, not as a distant symbol, not as a poetic figure, but as a messenger carrying a directive that cannot be ignored. His presence is not soft. It is not casual. It carries weight. It carries precision. It carries the unmistakable force of divine instruction. And when he arrives, everything shifts. The atmosphere tightens. Your awareness sharpens. The distractions that once felt important begin to fall away because something far greater has entered your focus. This is not imagination. This is not exaggeration. This is the moment where heaven intersects with your awareness and demands your attention. You may not see him with your physical eyes, but you feel the impact of his message. It comes as a sudden clarity, a piercing realization, a deep knowing that rises from within you and refuses to be silenced. It feels like truth, undeniable, unshakable, and impossible to ignore. That is how his voice reaches you. Not through noise, but through certainty. And what he brings is not comfort in the way you expected. It is not reassurance that everything will remain the same. It is not permission to continue delaying what you already know must be faced. What he brings is truth. Direct, unfiltered, and necessary. Because the moment you are in does not require softness. It requires clarity. He stands as a guardian of alignment, and his message cuts through confusion with precision. He does not speak to your fears. He speaks to your purpose. He does not entertain your hesitation. He confronts it. Because what you are standing in right now is not a casual phase. It is a defining point, a line between what has been and what must become. You have felt resistance, and you have questioned why. You have sensed opposition, and you have wondered what it means. But now the message becomes clear. Resistance is not random. It is a reaction to movement. It is the response of everything misaligned attempting to hold you in place as you begin to step forward. And Michael's presence confirms this. What you are facing is not meant to stop you. It is meant to reveal where you must stand firm. He brings a warning, but it is not rooted in fear. It is rooted in awareness. Because there are moments when delay is no longer harmless. Moments when ignoring what you know becomes the very thing that holds you back. And this is one of those moments. His message is direct. You cannot afford to remain where you are if you already know you are meant to move. There is something specific he is drawing your attention to. Something you have sensed but not fully acknowledge. It may be a decision, a direction, a separation, or a step forward you have been avoiding. Whatever it is, you already recognize it. You do not need it explained to you, because it has been present in your awareness for some time now. And his message does not introduce it. It confirms it. This is where the weight you feel begins to make sense. It is not confusion. It is not pressure without purpose. It is clarity pressing against hesitation. Because when truth is revealed, it does not sit quietly. It demands response. It demands movement. It demands alignment. Michael does not arrive to negotiate. He arrives to declare. And what he declares is simple, even if it feels intense. The time to act is now. Not later, not eventually, not when you feel more prepared. Now. Because the moment you are in has been building toward this exact point. Every realization, every feeling, every moment of awareness has been leading you here. And now that you are here, you cannot return to unawareness. You cannot pretend you do not feel what you feel. You cannot ignore what you know. Because once truth is revealed, it changes everything. It shifts your responsibility. It shifts your perspective. It shifts your path. This is not about perfection. It is not about having every answer. It is about responding to what has been placed in front of you with clarity and intention. Because the message you are receiving is not general. It is personal. It is precise. It is directed at you, in this moment, for a reason that goes beyond coincidence. You are being called into alignment, and this call carries urgency because the window to respond is open now. What you do with this moment matters. Not just for now, but for what comes next. Because this is not just a message. This is instruction. And the presence you feel, the clarity that is rising, the urgency that refuses to fade, this is the confirmation that you are not alone in this moment. You are being guided. You are being directed. And you are being positioned to move forward in a way that aligns with what you are meant to become. Type "I hear the message" in the comments if you receive this. Blessing code 3030 is now activated around your path. As this message settles into your spirit, understand this: every time truth reaches you, it is because someone chose to release it. And now, you stand at that same point of decision. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not giving to a channel. You are placing light into someone else's darkness, becoming part of the very message that just reached you. The word says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you," and this is not a distant promise. It is a living, breathing exchange happening right now. I feel led to say this clearly: your seed in this moment is not small. It is a spiritual act that multiplies beyond what you can see. There are souls waiting for the same clarity you just received it, and your action becomes the bridge that delivers it. Do not hesitate when your spirit is stirred. This is your moment to move. Release your support through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen. Step into alignment and become part of what God is doing right now. There is a part of your journey that has never fully made sense to you. Moments where things almost worked out, but didn't. Times when progress seemed within reach, only to slip away without explanation. Seasons where you felt strong, clear, and aligned, and then suddenly, without warning, everything felt clouded again. You questioned it. You tried to rationalize it. You told yourself it was just life being unpredictable. But deep down, there has always been a quiet knowing that something more was happening beneath the surface. That knowing was not wrong, because what you have been experiencing is not just external circumstance. It is an internal and spiritual resistance that has been operating quietly, subtly, and consistently. Not loud enough to alarm you immediately, but persistent enough to slow you down. Not obvious enough to be easily identified, but powerful enough to influence your direction. This is the hidden battle. It does not show itself in dramatic ways. It does not always appear as clear opposition. Instead, it works through delay, distraction, doubt, and subtle misalignment. It causes you to question what you once felt certain about. It introduces hesitation where there was once clarity. It creates just enough confusion to keep you from moving forward with confidence. You have felt it in your decisions. That moment when you know what to do, but something inside you pulls back. That hesitation that does not come from logic, but from a deeper uncertainty you cannot explain. You have felt it in your energy. Days when you should feel motivated, but instead feel drained without reason. Moments when your focus slips, your clarity fades, and your sense of direction feels just out of reach. This is not random. This is what happens when something is working quietly to keep you in a place that no longer matches who you are becoming. Because growth creates tension. Alignment exposes misalignment. And when you begin to move closer to your purpose, anything that cannot move with you begins to resist. Not always aggressively, but persistently. Not always visibly, but effectively. This is why the battle has felt so confusing. Because it has not always looked like a battle. It has looked like normal life. Normal delays. Normal distractions. Normal doubts. But the pattern is what reveals the truth. The repetition. The timing. The way it appears just as you are about to move forward. That is not coincidence. That is interference. And now, through the awareness being brought to you, that interference is being exposed. This is where the role of Archangel Michael becomes critical. Because his presence is not just to deliver a message, it is to reveal what had been hidden. To bring into clarity what hath been operating in silence. To show you that what you have been feeling is not something to dismiss, but something to understand. Because once something is seen clearly, it loses its ability to control you. The power of the hidden battle was never in its strength. It was in its invisibility. It worked because it was not fully recognized. It influenced you because it remained unnamed. But now that it is being brought into your awareness, it no longer holds that same position. This is the turning point. You are no longer moving blindly. You are no longer guessing why things have felt the way they have. You are no longer dismissing your own intuition. You are beginning to see the pattern, and that changes everything. Because awareness creates choice, and choice creates movement. There is something important you must understand in this moment. The resistance you have felt is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. It is a sign that you are approaching the right one. Because misalignment does not resist stagnation, it resists progress. It does not fight when you stay the same. It reacts when you begin to change. That is why the pressure has increased. That is why the hesitation has felt stronger. That is why the distractions have become more persistent. Not because you are failing, but because you are moving closer to something that requires your full alignment. And now, you are being given the clarity to recognize it. You are being shown that the battle is not something to fear, but something to understand. Because once you understand it, you no longer respond to it the same way. You no longer allow it to dictate your pace. You no longer allow it to delay your decisions. You move differently. You respond with awareness instead of confusion. You act with clarity instead of hesitation. And this is exactly what shifts the outcome. Because the hidden battle only works as long as it remains hidden. The moment it is exposed, it begins to lose its influence. And the moment you choose to act with awareness, it loses its hold. This is where you are now. At the point where what was once unclear is becoming visible. Where what once influenced you quietly is now being brought into your understanding. Where what once slowed you down is now being recognized for what it is. And from this point forward, you are no longer the same. Because you see, you understand. And now, you are in a position to move forward without carrying what was never meant to stay with you. Type "I see" clearly now in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 4040 is now activated around your awareness. There is something you must confront in this moment, not with guilt, not with regret, but with clarity. This is not the first time you have felt this pull. This is not the first time something inside you has tried to get your attention. Long before this message reached you, there were signals, quiet, consistent, undeniable signals, that something was shifting, something was calling, something was trying to guide you in a different direction. You remember them. Moments that felt too precise to be coincidence. Thoughts that came out of nowhere but stayed longer than expected. Feelings that didn't match your environment but refused to leave. You may have brushed them off at the time, telling yourself it was nothing, telling yourself you were overthinking, telling yourself you would deal with it later. But those moments were not random. They were not meaningless. They were attempts, intentional, repeated attempts to reach you before now. Heaven does not always speak loudly at first. It begins with subtlety. A nudge. A shift in perspective. A sudden awareness that interrupts your normal thinking. It gives you space to notice, space to respond, space to align without pressure. But when those signals are ignored, they do not disappear. They return, stronger, clearer, more persistent. You have experienced this pattern. There were times when you felt a strong sense that something was not right, even when everything appeared fine on the surface. Times when you sensed you needed to step away from something but you stayed. Times when you knew you should take action but you delayed. Not because you didn't care, but because you weren't ready to fully trust what you were feeling. And so, you waited. You told yourself you would act when things became clearer. You told yourself you needed more confirmation. You told yourself you needed the right moment. But what you didn't realize is that those moments were the confirmation. Those feelings were the clarity. Those interruptions were the right time. This is what makes this moment different. Because now, the pattern has reached a point where it can no longer remain subtle. What was once a whisper has become a call. What was once a feeling has become a realization. What was once easy to ignore is now impossible to overlook. And this is where Archangel Michael brings you face to face with truth, not to overwhelm you, but to help you recognize what had been happening all along. You were not unaware. You were aware but uncertain. You were not disconnected. You were connected but hesitant. You were not lost. You were being guided, but you kept questioning the direction. Every sign you ignored did not disappear. It accumulated. It built into the clarity you are experiencing now. It formed the urgency you feel. It created the sense that something cannot be postponed any longer. This is not about missed chances. This is about a final opportunity to respond to what had been consistently placed in front of you. There were signs in your environment, repeated patterns that didn't make sense logically, but carried a deeper meaning. Conversations that stood out more than they should have. Words that stayed with you long after they were spoken. Situations that kept repeating until you noticed them. There were signs within you. A voice that spoke without sound, guiding your attention, shifting your focus, nudging you toward awareness. A sense of knowing that you couldn't explain, but couldn't ignore either. And there were signs in your timing. Moments when things aligned too perfectly to be random. Moments when delays protected you. Moments when disruptions redirected you. Moments when things didn't go as planned, but later made more sense than if they had. None of this was accidental. Every part of it was intentional. But the nature of guidance is that it requires response. It does not force movement. It invites it. And when the invitation is delayed long enough, it eventually becomes a call that cannot be ignored. That is where you are now. This is no longer a moment of suggestion. This is a moment of recognition. You are being shown that everything you felt before was valid, that the patterns you noticed were real, that the signals you questioned were meaningful, that the awareness you pushed aside was accurate. And now, you are being asked to do something different. Not to analyze it further, not to wait for more confirmation, not to delay until it feels easier, but to respond. Because the clarity you have now is the result of everything that came before, and ignoring it now would not be the same as before. Before, you were still discovering. Now you are fully aware. This is why the urgency feels stronger. This is why the message feels heavier. This is why the moment feels significant. Because you are no longer in the phase of being shown. You are in the phase of being asked to act. And the truth is simple. You already know what this is about. You already know what needs to change. You already know what you have been avoiding. The signs were never unclear. They were just unacknowledged. But now, they have led you here. And this time, you are not being asked to notice. You are being asked to move. Type "I acknowledge the signs" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 5050 is now activated around your path. There is a moment in every person's journey where awareness is no longer enough. A moment where understanding no longer satisfies the weight of what is being revealed. A moment where everything you have sensed, everything you have recognized, everything you have slowly come to accept reaches a point of pressure, and that pressure demands action. This is that moment for you. You are no longer standing in uncertainty. You are no longer searching for answers you cannot find. You are standing in front of something you already understand, even if you have not yet acted on it. And this is where the tension you feel becomes unavoidable. Because once clarity arrives, delay becomes heavier than decision. There is something specific you have been avoiding. Not because you are incapable, not because you are unprepared, but because acting on it would change something you have grown familiar with. It would disrupt what feels stable, even if that stability no longer serves you. It would require you to step out of what is known and into something that demands trust. And that is where hesitation has held you. But now, hesitation is no longer neutral. It is no longer a place of safety. It has become the very thing that stands between you and alignment. Because what you are facing is not a suggestion. It is not a possibility. It is a decision point, clear, present, and unavoidable. This is why the presence of Archangel Michael carries such weight in this moment. He does not arrive to offer options. He arrives to reveal necessity, to make it clear that what lies before you is not something to consider later. It is something to act on now. There is no longer space to keep analyzing what you already know. No more waiting for the right feeling. No more postponing until it feels easier. Because the truth is, it will not feel easier. It will feel necessary. And that is the difference. What you must do is not complicated, even if it feels difficult. It is direct. It is clear. And it has been present in your awareness for some time now. You have revisited it in your thoughts. You have felt it surface in quiet moments. You have sensed it during times when everything else faded and only truth remained. That is what you must act on. Not what others expect from you. Not what feels comfortable. Not what keeps things the same. But what aligns with what you already know deep within. This is the critical decision. It may involve letting go of something you have held on to for too long. It may require stepping away from a situation that no longer supports who you are becoming. It may demand that you move forward in a direction that feels uncertain but undeniably right. It may call you to speak, to act, to change, or to release. Whatever it is, you already recognize it. And the longer you delay, the heavier it becomes, not because it is meant to burden you, but because it is meant to move you. There is a difference between waiting with purpose and delaying out of hesitation. Purposeful waiting feels aligned, even when it is quiet. Hesitation feels heavy, restless, and unresolved. And what you have been feeling is not alignment. It is the weight of knowing without acting. That is why this moment matters. Because this is where you shift from awareness into movement. This is where you stop revisiting the same realization and begin responding to it. This is where you choose to align with what you know, even if it requires stepping into discomfort. And this is where everything begins to change. You do not need certainty about every outcome. You do not need guarantees about what will happen next. What you need is the willingness to act on what is already clear. Because clarity is not given so it can be stored. It is given so it can be followed. The decision you make here will not just affect this moment. It will influence everything that follows. It will determine whether you remain in a cycle of repeated awareness or step into a path of forward movement. It will decide whether what you have been sensing becomes reality or remains unfulfilled potential. And this is why the urgency exists. Not to pressure you, but to position you. Not to overwhelm you, but to move you. Not to force you, but to remind you that this moment is active and your response matters. There is no perfect time beyond this moment. There is no future point where this decision will feel completely effortless. There is only now. The moment where everything you have felt, everything you have realized, everything you have been led to understand converges into one simple requirement. Act. And when you act, something shifts. The weight lifts. The clarity deepens. The path begins to reveal itself in ways it could not before. Because movement unlocks what stillness cannot. You have reached the point where standing still is no longer neutral. It is now the only thing holding you back. And the moment you choose to move, even if it is a single step, you break that hold. This is your moment to do that. To stop circling what you already know. To stop postponing what you already feel. To stop waiting for what has already arrived. And to step forward into alignment with clarity, with intention, and with the understanding that this decision is not random, it is necessary. Type "I choose to ACT" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6060 is now activated around your decision. Here is a truth that must be faced with complete honesty in this moment, and it is not meant to create fear, but to bring clarity to the weight of what stands before you. Every decision carries a consequence, not always immediate, not always visible, but always present. And just as action creates movement, delay creates stagnation. You have already felt the tension of delay, that quiet discomfort that lingers even when everything around you appears calm. That sense that something is unfinished, unresolved, waiting for your response. It does not go away with distraction. It does not fade with time. In fact, it grows stronger, more persistent, more difficult to ignore. This is not because you are being pressured. It is because you are being called, and that call does not disappear simply because it is postponed. There is a cost to waiting beyond the moment that clarity hath been given. At first, that cost feels small. It looks like hesitation, like a simple pause, like a decision that can be made later. But over time, that pause becomes a pattern. That hesitation becomes a habit. A delay becomes a cycle. And without realizing it, you begin to repeat the same awareness without ever stepping into action. This is how opportunities are missed, not through lack of ability, not through lack of potential, but through prolonged delay after recognition. You have seen glimpses of this already. Moments where you knew you should have acted sooner. Situations where clarity came too late because hesitation held you back. Times when you realized that what you delayed did not disappear. It simply moved out of reach. This is what makes this moment critical. Because now you are not unaware. You are not uncertain. You are standing in a place where you clearly recognize what is being asked of you. And choosing to ignore that does not return you to neutrality. It moves you into misalignment. This is where the presence of Archangel Michael becomes even more significant. His message is not just about what you should do. It is about what happens if you choose not to respond. Not as a threat, but as a reality. Because truth does not change based on comfort. It remains steady, whether it is followed or ignored. Ignoring this moment does not stop what is unfolding. It only removes your alignment with it. The path you are meant to walk does not disappear, but your position on that path can shift. And when that happens, what could have been a step forward becomes a period of repetition. Lessons return. Patterns repeat. The same realizations surface again, often with greater intensity, until they are acknowledged and acted upon. This is the cycle of delay, and you have already experienced parts of it. Situations that felt familiar because they were. Decisions that felt repetitive because they were being revisited. Moments where you thought you had moved forward, only to realize you were facing the same choice again. This is not failure. It is a sign that something has not yet been completed. And the longer it remains incomplete, the more it shapes your experience. Delay does not stop growth, but it slows it. It does not remove opportunity, but it shifts its timing. It does not erase potential, but it postpones its expression. And over time, that postponement becomes the difference between where you are and where you could have been. This is why this moment carries urgency. Not because something is being taken from you, but because something is waiting for you. And waiting has a limit. There are moments when alignment is available in a way that makes movement smoother, clearer, more direct. But when those moments pass, the same movement may require more effort, more resistance, more repetition to reach the same place. You are in one of those moments now. A moment where clarity is present. A moment where direction is known. A moment where the next step is visible. And choosing to ignore it does not make it disappear. It simply delays what must eventually be faced. There is also a deeper cost, one that is not always immediately recognized. Each time you ignore what you know, you begin to weaken your trust in your own awareness. You begin to question what you feel. You begin to doubt what you recognize. And over time, that doubt creates distance between you and the clarity you once had. That is how disconnection begins, not suddenly, but gradually, through repeated moments of choosing not to act on what is already understood. But this is where the shift can still happen. Because you are not locked into delay. You are not bound to repetition. You are not forced to continue the cycle. You are being shown it so you can break it. Right now. In this moment. By choosing differently. The cost of delay is real, but it is not permanent. Unless you continue it. And the moment you decide to act, everything begins to change. The cycle breaks. The repetition ends. The path opens again. Because alignment responds immediately to action. You are not being asked to carry the weight of what happens if you ignore this. You are being shown it so you understand the importance of what you choose next. And what you choose next is still in your control. Type "I will not delay" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7070 is now activated around your path. There is a side of this moment that you have not fully allowed yourself to see yet. You have felt the urgency. You have understood the weight of delay. You have recognized the signs and the decision before you. But now, you must turn your attention to something equally powerful, the outcome of obedience. Because what stands on the other side of your action is not loss, not confusion, not uncertainty. It is shifted. Real, undeniable, transformative shift. When alignment meets action, something begins to move that could not move before. Not because it was impossible, but because it required your participation. There are things prepared for you that do not respond to thought alone. They do not respond to awareness alone. They respond to movement. And the moment you take that step, even if it feels small, even if it feels uncertain, something begins to unlock. You may not see it instantly, but you will feel it. A release of pressure that has been building within you. A clarity that feels lighter, sharper, more stable. A sense that something has finally shifted out of the place it was stuck. That is not coincidence. It is alignment responding to your decision. Because obedience is not about perfection. It is about agreement. It is about choosing to align with what you already know instead of resisting it. And when that agreement happens, it creates movement not just within you, but around you. This is where Archangel Michael stands not just as a messenger of warning, but as a witness to transformation. His role is not only to bring urgency, it is to confirm that when you respond, you are not stepping into uncertainty alone. You are stepping into a process that is already prepared to meet you. There are doors that have remained closed, not because they were denied, but because they required a different version of you to approach them. There are opportunities that have not yet appeared, not because they do not exist, but because they are aligned with a version of you that has already acted. There are paths that feel unclear, not because they are hidden, but because they are revealed through movement, not observation. This is the shift that begins when you obey. It is not always loud. It is not always dramatic. But it is real. It is precise. And it is progressive. You begin to notice that what once felt confusing becomes clearer. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once felt distant begins to feel closer, more accessible, more within reach. This is not external change alone. It is internal alignment creating external movement. And the more you move, the more it unfolds. There is also something deeper that happens in this moment. The relationship between you and your own awareness strengthens. You begin to trust what you feel without second-guessing it. You begin to recognize clarity when it appears instead of questioning it. You begin to move with intention instead of hesitation. This is how transformation stabilizes. Because it is not just about one decision. It is about the pattern that follows it. When you choose to act now, you are not just resolving this moment. You are setting a new standard for how you respond moving forward. You are breaking the cycle of delay and replacing it with a rhythm of action. And that rhythm creates momentum. Momentum is what carries you forward when doubt tries to return. Momentum is what keeps you moving when things are not fully visible yet. Momentum is what turns a single decision into continuous progress. This is why obedience matters. Not because you are being tested, but because you are being positioned. Everything that follows this moment is shaped by what you choose here. And when you choose alignment, what follows begins to align with you. Situations begin to shift. Conversations begin to change. Opportunities begin to appear in ways that were not accessible before. Not because they were created in that moment, but because you stepped into the version of yourself that can now receive them. This is the divine shift. It is not forced. It is not accidental. It is the natural result of alignment meeting action. And you are closer to it than you realize. The moment you stop resisting what you already know, you step into it. The moment you act on what you have been shown, you activate it. The moment you choose movement over delay, you begin to experience it. This is not about waiting for change. This is about initiating it. Because what is on the other side of your obedience is not something distant. It is something ready. Ready to meet you. Ready to move with you. Ready to unfold as you step forward. And the only thing separating you from it now is whether you choose to act or continue to wait. Type "I step into alignment" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8080 is now activated around your path. As you feel this shift taking place within you, understand that what just moved in your spirit is the same light that is meant to reach others who are still searching. Every seed you sow into this mission becomes a doorway for someone else to encounter truth at the exact moment they need it. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days," and right now, that promise is speaking directly to you. I feel led to say this. Your action in this moment is not ordinary. It is prophetic alignment with what God is doing through these messages. When you release your support through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not just giving. You are multiplying impact, extending reach, and igniting clarity in lives you may never see. Do not delay when your spirit is stirred, because this is your moment to move with purpose. Step into this alignment fully and release your seed through the link or QR code now. What you activate for others will return to you in ways you cannot yet imagine. There comes a phase in every transformation where holding on becomes more painful than letting go. Not because what you are holding is entirely wrong, not because it never had value, but because it no longer aligns with who you are becoming. This is the phase you are stepping into now, a season of separation. And this is one of the most misunderstood, yet necessary, parts of alignment. You may have already started to feel it, a quiet distance forming between you and certain people, that of connection in conversations that once felt natural, a growing discomfort in environments that once felt familiar. It is subtle at first, almost easy to ignore, but it continues to build until it becomes undeniable. That feeling is not random. It is not emotional instability. It is awareness showing you that something no longer fits. This is where many hesitate, because letting go does not always feel like relief at first. It can feel like loss. It can feel like uncertainty. It can feel like stepping away from something that once mattered, something that once felt safe, something that once defined part of your identity. And that is what makes this moment difficult. Not the act of releasing, but the emotional weight attached to it. But what must be understood clearly is this: separation is not punishment. It is positioning. There are connections, patterns, environments, and even habits that were part of your journey up to this point, but they are not meant to continue into what comes next. Not because they are entirely negative, but because they cannot support the direction you are now moving toward. And this is where Archangel Michael brings clarity that cannot be softened. Because when alignment requires separation, it cannot be negotiated. It must be accepted. You are not being asked to remove everything from your life. You are being asked to recognize what no longer aligns with your growth and release it with intention. This may involve people who were once close but now feel distant, not because of conflict but because of difference. You are no longer moving in the same direction. Your awareness has shifted. Your priorities have changed. Your perspective has evolved. And while there may still be familiarity, there is no longer alignment. Holding on to those connections out of comfort will only create internal tension, because you will constantly feel the gap between where you are and where they remain. This may also involve patterns, ways of thinking, reacting, or behaving that once felt normal but now feel limiting. Patterns that kept you in cycles of delay, hesitation, or self-doubt. These patterns may not seem harmful at first, but they quietly keep you from stepping fully into what you are capable of. Releasing them is not about rejecting your past. It is about refusing to let your past define your future. And then there are environments, spaces that no longer support your clarity, situations that drain your energy, surroundings that make it harder to maintain the awareness you are beginning to develop. These environments may still be accessible, still familiar, still easy to remain in, but they are no longer aligned with where you are going. This is where the decision becomes real, because recognition alone is not enough. You must choose to release. And this is where resistance often appears strongest. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because letting go requires trust. Trust that what you are stepping away from is not meant to hold you anymore. Trust that what lies ahead will meet you in ways that what you are leaving behind no longer can. There is also a deeper truth in this moment. Separation is not always permanent, but it is always purposeful. Some things may return in a different form, at a different time, with a different level of alignment. Others will not return at all. And part of your growth is learning to accept both without resistance. Because holding on to what must be released creates delay. It keeps you connected to what no longer supports you, while preventing you from fully stepping into what does. This is why this season feels intense. You are not just being asked to move forward, you are being asked to leave something behind in order to do so. And that requires clarity. It requires honesty. It requires the willingness to acknowledge what you already feel but may not have fully accepted. Because the truth is, you already know what this is about. You already sense what feels different. You already recognize what no longer aligns. And now, you are being asked to act on that awareness. This is not about cutting everything off abruptly. It is about intentional release. It is about stepping away from what no longer serves your direction with understanding, not resentment. It is about choosing alignment over attachment. And when you do, something shifts. The space you create by releasing what no longer fits becomes the space where new alignment enters. Clarity deepens. Energy stabilizes. Direction becomes more defined. Because what you let go of is not taken from you. It is replaced by what aligns with who you are becoming. This is the purpose of this season. Not loss, but transition. Not removal, but preparation. Not emptiness, but space for something greater. And the moment you accept that, the process becomes clearer. You stop resisting what you feel. You stop holding on to what you know must be released. And you begin to move forward without the weight that has been quietly holding you back. Type "I release what no longer serves me" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9090 is now activated around your path. There are moments in life that do not announce themselves loudly, yet they carry more weight than any other. They do not come with clear labels or visible markers, but they stand quietly at the edge of your path, waiting for your response. This is one of those moments. Not just another decision, not just another step, but a defining point, a final test that determines whether you move forward into alignment or remain where you have been. A test is not always about difficulty. It is about response. You are not being tested on your strength, your intelligence, or your ability to endure. You are being tested on your willingness to act on what you already know. That is what makes this moment different from all the others that came before. Because before, you were still learning, still recognizing, still becoming aware. But now, you have clarity. And once clarity is present, the question is no longer what should I do, but will I do it? This is where everything narrows into focus. The distractions that once held your attention begin to lose their importance. A noise that once clouded your thinking begins to fade. What remains is simple, direct, and undeniable. A single point of decision that carries the weight of everything you have experienced up to now. This is the final test, and what makes it powerful is not its complexity, but its simplicity. You already know the answer. You already know the step. You already know what is being asked of you. The challenge is not understanding. It is obedience. This is where many hesitate, not because they lack clarity, but because acting on that clarity requires letting go of what feels familiar. It requires stepping into something that cannot be fully controlled or predicted. It requires trust, not in outcomes, but in alignment. And this is where Archangel Michael stands as a witness to this moment, not to force your decision, but to confirm its significance. Because when a moment carries this level of clarity and urgency, it is never ordinary. It is always a turning point. This is not just about what you do next. It is about what that action represents. If you choose to act, you are not just moving forward, you are confirming that you trust what you have been shown. You are establishing a new pattern where clarity leads to movement, not hesitation. You are stepping into a version of yourself that responds with intention rather than delay. But if you choose not to act, the result is not immediate failure. It is something quieter, but just as impactful. You return to repetition. You revisit the same awareness. You face the same decision again, possibly with greater intensity. Because what is unresolved does not disappear. It returns until it is completed. This is why this moment determines your next chapter. Because the next chapter is not written by chance. It is written by response. The direction you move in now will shape what unfolds next. Not in a dramatic, sudden way, but in a steady, progressive way. One decision leading to another. One step opening the path for the next. One act of alignment creating the conditions for further clarity. This is how transformation builds. Not through a single, perfect moment, but through a series of decisions that begin with one critical step. And this is that step. There is also something important to understand about tests like this. They are not designed to trap you. They are designed to reveal you. To show you where you stand in relation to what you know. To bring into alignment what has already been understood. This is not about proving something to anyone else. It is about confirming something within yourself. That you are ready. That you are willing. That you are capable of acting on truth when it is placed in front of you. Because readiness is not about feeling completely prepared. It is about responding when the moment arrives, even if there are still unknowns. And the moment has arrived. There is no additional confirmation needed beyond what you already feel. There is no further sign required beyond the clarity that has been building within you. There is no better time than now, because now is the moment that holds everything you need to move forward. You are not being asked to take a leap without awareness. You are being asked to take a step with clarity. And that step, no matter how small it may seem, is what determines everything that follows. This is the threshold. Behind you is repetition. In front of you is progression. And the only thing that separates the two is your decision in this moment. Type "I passed this test" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around your next chapter. There is something within you that still hesitates, even after everything you have understood. Not because you doubt what you feel, but because you are aware that stepping forward means stepping into the unknown. And the unknown has always carried a certain weight. A question that lingers quietly beneath every decision. What happens after I move? This is where you must shift your understanding. Because this moment has never been about you moving alone. It has never been about you stepping forward without support, without covering, without guidance. What you are being called into is not exposure. It is protection through alignment. There is a promise attached to obedience that many overlook. Not a promise that everything will become easy, not a promise that challenges will disappear, but a promise that you will not face what comes next without covering. That there is a presence that moves with you the moment you choose to align, a presence that does not wait for perfection, but responds to willingness. This is where Archangel Michael stands not only as a messenger, but as a protector. His role is not limited to delivering urgency or revealing truth. His role extends into what follows your decision. Because once you step forward, there is a shift not only in your direction, but in what surrounds you. Protection does not always appear the way you expect it to. It is not always visible. It is not always immediate, but it is always active. It works through timing, closing doors that would have led you away from alignment. It works through clarity, allowing you to recognize what you could not see before. It works through disruption, interrupting paths that are not meant for you, even when they once felt right. It works through positioning, placing you in situations, conversations, and environments that support your next step. You may have already experienced moments like this without realizing what they were. Times when something did not work out, and later you understood why. Situations that felt like setbacks, but ultimately redirected you in a way that made more sense. Moments where you were delayed, only to see that the delay protected you from something you could not have predicted. That was not random. That was covering. And the moment you choose to act now, that same covering intensifies, not because it suddenly appears, but because you have aligned yourself with it. This is the difference between moving alone and moving in alignment. When you move alone, you rely on your own understanding, your own timing, your own ability to control outcomes. But when you move in alignment, you begin to experience a different kind of guidance. One that does not require you to see everything ahead, but allows you to trust the step you are taking. This is what removes the fear of the unknown. Not because the unknown disappears, but because you understand that you are not navigating it by yourself. There is also something else that happens when you step into this level of alignment. Your sensitivity to what is right and what is not becomes stronger. You begin to notice things more quickly. You begin to recognize what feels aligned and what does not without needing extended time to analyze it. You begin to respond with clarity instead of confusion. This is part of the protection. Because protection is not only about what is kept away from you, it is also about what you are able to recognize and avoid before it affects you. You are being positioned to move with awareness, to move with clarity, to move with a sense of direction that does not depend on external validation. And this is where your confidence begins to change. Not into certainty about outcomes, but into trust in your alignment. There is a difference between confidence in results and confidence in direction. Results can vary. Timing can shift. But direction, when aligned, remains steady. And that steadiness becomes the foundation for everything that follows. This is why you are not being asked to have everything figured out before you move. You are being asked to trust that once you move, what you need will meet you. The protection is already present. The guidance is already active. The covering is already in place. But it responds to movement. It aligns with action. It strengthens when you step forward. And this is the part you must hold on to as you make your decision. You are not stepping into uncertainty without support. You are stepping into alignment with protection. And that changes everything. Because now, the question is no longer what if something goes wrong. The question becomes, what if everything begins to align the moment I move? That is the promise you are standing in. Not guaranteed ease, but guaranteed covering. Not absence of challenge, but presence of guidance. Not complete visibility, but complete alignment with what is meant for you. And that is more than enough. Type "I trust the protection" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now activated around your path. This is it. Not another message. Not another moment to reflect and return later. Not another opportunity to say, "I will think about it." This is the point where everything that has been building within you reaches its final convergence. The awareness, the urgency, the clarity, the tension, the signs, the decision, all of it has led to this exact moment. And now, there is nothing left to process, only to act. You have been brought step by step into this awareness. Not rushed, not forced, but guided. Every section of this journey has peeled back a layer, removed confusion, exposed truth, and brought you closer to what you already knew deep within. And now, there is no separation between what you feel and what you understand. You know, you feel, you recognize. And that is why this is no longer a moment of preparation. It is a moment of activation. This is where Archangel Michael no longer stands as a distant voice or a symbolic presence. He stands as a witness to your decision. Because everything that needed to be revealed has already been revealed. Everything that needed to be clarified has already been clarified. There is no missing piece left for you to wait on. Only your response remains. This is the line between who you have been and who you are becoming. On one side is everything familiar. The patterns, the delays, the hesitations, the repeated cycles you have already recognized. The comfort of staying the same, even when you know it no longer fits. The illusion that there will always be more time to act later. On the other side is movement. Not perfect movement. Not guaranteed outcomes. But real movement. Alignment in action. A step into something that begins to unfold because you chose to respond instead of wait. This is the final call. And what makes it final is not that there will never be another opportunity, but that this moment, in its exact form, will not return. This clarity, this awareness, this precise alignment of understanding and urgency exists now. And now is where it must be answered. There is no more need to question whether this is real. You felt it from the beginning. There is no more need to ask if this applies to you. You recognize yourself in every part of this message. There is no more need to wait for confirmation. This is the confirmation. And now, the only thing left is your decision. You may feel a mix of things right now. Clarity, yes, but also resistance. A part of you ready to move, and another part still holding on to what feels safe. That is natural, because every moment of change carries both awareness and resistance. But only one of them leads forward. You have already seen what delay creates. You have already felt the weight of knowing without acting. You have already experienced the repetition that comes from hesitation. And now, you have also seen what alignment can bring. The shift, the clarity, the momentum, the protection. So now, the question becomes simple. Which side will you choose? Not in theory, not in thought, but in action. Because this is where everything becomes real. Not in what you feel, but in what you do next. Not in what you understand, but in how you respond. Not in what you plan, but in the step you take. And that step does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be taken. Because once you move, everything that has been waiting for your alignment begins to move with you. The path does not fully appear before you step. It reveals itself as you do. The clarity does not expand while you remain still. It deepens as you act. This is activation, not waiting for change, becoming the one who initiates it. You are not here to observe your life. You are here to step into it, fully, intentionally, and without delay. This is your moment to stop circling what you already know and to finally move in the direction that has been calling you. Not tomorrow, not later, now, because everything you need to begin is already within your reach, and everything that follows depends on whether you choose to use it. This is the final call, and your response to it will echo into everything that comes next. Type "I answer the call" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated around your life. As you stand in this moment of activation, understand this truth. Every soul that hears a message like this is standing on the edge of transformation, just like you are right now. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not helping a channel. You are helping light reach someone who is still in darkness, someone who is still waiting for their moment of clarity. The word speaks. Those who sow in faith will reap in abundance. And this is not just scripture. It is a living exchange unfolding through your obedience. I feel this deeply for you. Your giving in this moment is not small. It is a seed that carries spiritual weight, opening doors not only for others, but within your own life. There are people who will find their breakthrough because you chose to act, just as you are being called to act now. Do not hesitate when your spirit is stirred, because this is part of your alignment. Go to the PayPal link in the description or scan the QR code on your screen and release your seed now. Step fully into this calling and become part of the divine movement that is reaching lives across the world.